Welcome to the Rise to Shine podcast with Noelle Custis, where we ignite the spark to discover your favorite self. It is time to get real, ladies. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Rise to Shine podcast. I am your host, Noelle Custis. I am thrilled to introduce today's extraordinary guest. As a podcaster that is devoted to amplifying women's voices, I'm constantly searching for individuals who not only share their compelling stories, but also inspire and uplift others. And the moment I discovered Joanne's work, I knew I had to get her on the show. So Joanne Green is a beacon of resilience and inspiration. And from her commanding presence on the airways to her heartfelt storytelling, she really has captivated audience for decades, I believe. And with a career marked by both triumphs and challenges, Joanne has really just emerged into this powerful voice for women, reminding us that even in the face of life's unexpected storms, we possess the strength to not only survive, but to thrive. And today she is going to share her wisdom and her wit as she has navigated this new chapter filled with purpose and passion. And you know, that's what I am all about. I just love it. And let me tell you, here's one thing that I learned about Joanne and I love is that she never bought the adage, little girls should be seen and not heard. She has used her voice actually on San Francisco radio and television, webinars, podcasts to explore the issues of our time with all of her wit, all of her honesty and heartfelt empathy. And now has learned what it's like to navigate her family and career, moving through the need. And I love that she states this. It's moving through the need to be in control to discovering how letting go of that need can reveal great strength. So currently she hosts the podcast In This Story, so fabulous, where she shares her micro essays, and it's all set to music and it showcases her tales and observations. It's just really such a fun podcast. I can't wait to talk about it. She's also published a book called By Accident, a memoir of letting go. So without any longer introductions, I have so much to say because I am just fascinated. I am so thrilled to have you today, Joanne. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Noelle. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm honored that you wanted to have me on.
Absolutely. Well, it's so fun. Our audience is definitely, lots of women out there, and really our whole premise is to bring women on of all ages, all stages that really, have learned what their purpose is and their passion and have moved into those next chapters. And I love that, being a woman that is, I heard this weekend that midlife is now in the 40s. I thought it was, when I was growing up, it was 50. That's always what I thought. But as a 50-year-old woman, I do feel like I'm in a space of making some big pivots in my life and finding that purpose and that passion. So I am so thrilled to have you because I just felt this great alignment. And of course, I peeked in on your podcast and I was just mesmerized by it all. It just makes me giggle. It makes me smile. And it's so relevant to so many women. I actually was telling my mom about it too, going, Mom, you've got to tune in. It's so great. So with all of that, let's go ahead and get started. And
wait,
yes,
I have to tell you, just this weekend, while you were thinking about midlife,
yeah.
I actually did a search because I thought, I'm probably not in midlife anymore, but what is midlife? And what I found was that it's 40 to 60. So I am definitely in midlife. And I don't know what I'm in, but it's a new beginning, I'll call it.
I love it. And you know what I loved is this weekend I had went to a women's conference, and one of the speakers was talking about this whole thing about, being in midlife, and she was someone that really thrived in her 20s and 30s, and she built this huge business. And now that she is in midlife, she was like, oh, I'm there, I'm in it. She said the thing that she wanted to really encourage us with is she said, I want you to know, those of you sitting here that are in your 20s and 30s, that there is so much life to be lived in these different stages of life, and there's so much more to do and say. And I just thought it was so inspiring to hear that, because I hear people, especially women, I think, that talk about being nervous about turning 50, because you do realize, like, a lot of your life has been
Okay. Well, I'm your person because I'm 70. This is what
right.
70 looks like. I
Love
am
it.
happier than I've ever been my
Gorgeous.
entire life. I'm
Love
more productive. I'm not working for anybody for the first time.
Yeah.
I'll say I stopped that just at the beginning of COVID. Um, really devoted all my energy to finishing the book. Not necessarily making money these days, but
Right.
happier than ever. And
Love that.
when you talk about having things to look forward to, let me just say that retirement, however you choose to define it,
Yeah.
as long as you're healthy, as long as you're not
Right.
in pain, can be the most glorious phase of life. So,
I love that. I love that. That is such a great message. That's exactly what we're talking about here in this space. And those are the stories that I love to hear, because I feel like we just need to hear that more. We need to see that more. We need to, see women.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
I'm all about aging with pleasure.
Yes.
And I think it's an unbelievable privilege to be aging.
Mm,
Neither of my siblings
yes.
had that opportunity. Neither of them made it out of their 60s. And
Right.
I I know what brings meaning to my life now in a way that we
Mm,
don't always know when we're in our 20s and 30s and maybe even
right.
40s, and we're so busy and we're trying to build our careers and take care of our parents and raise our kids and keep up with whoever you're trying to keep up with. But it is such a privilege and an honor now to be able to notice things and be
Mm,
mindful as I walk through the day and not sweat the small stuff
yeah.
and really be able to adapt and adjust. Because here's the thing, Noelle, we cannot control what happens to us in life.
Right.
Control is a seductive illusion. We think we can
Mm,
control things. What we can control is how we respond, how we react
love that.
to what happens to us. And that is a skill that you need to develop.
Hmm.
And there are ways to do that. We talk to ourselves all the time. And
Yep.
I'm sure every single woman listening right now knows and has at one time or another said something like, "Who do you think you are?"
Oh, I
Right?
talk about it all the time. That comes up all the time. Yes.
Who do you think you are?
That
You
head.
think you can do XYZ?
Mhm.
All of that. That I call that negative self-talk.
Yep.
And here's the thing, we talk to ourselves all the time. So why not give ourselves messages that serve us rather than tear us down?
Absolutely.
I say, talk to yourself like you are your own best friend. Talk to
Yes.
yourself as you would your best buddy. What would you say to her if she was struggling? Say that to
Yeah.
yourself.
So good. I love that. I love that, because I know one of the little tricks that I have, and it's so funny that it's going off onto this, this part of the conversation is, I have a picture of myself. It's like my favorite picture as a little girl. I'm probably about kindergarten age, and I've got the cute little pigtails and my little red and white striped dress. And I have that literally hanging so I can see it every day, because when I get caught in that, I always think about that little girl, and I think she's still part of who I am. And I would never talk to that little girl that way. And I love that you say, how would you talk to your best friend? It's the same thing. We would never speak to our best friend the way that we do to ourselves, and how we are so harsh. And goodness gracious, I love, love, love that. So thank you so much for sharing that.
You bet.
So good. Well, Joanne, tell us about, I know we jumped in, and I had a feeling that would happen with us. But I would love for our audience to know that, let's first start out with just, who you are before you started your career. What is your background, and just give us a little tidbit of your life.
Sure. I grew up in Brookline, Massachusetts, which
Okay.
is adjacent to Boston, in a very insular Jewish community. And I was the youngest of three kids. My parents were in their 40s when they had me. I was an accident. So the title of my book, By Accident, has multiple meanings. One of them is my entire existence is an accident.
Mm.
And I was different than the rest of the family. My mom, my sister, and brother were all very linear. They were all math people. I was expansive, creative, imaginative, telling stories, staging plays in the backyard, which I wrote and directed and starred in. And they just did not know what to do with me. And I also was a child of the 60s, which my siblings were not.
Mm.
They were 13 and 8 when I was born. And
Okay.
I was doing everything that you've heard about that people did in the 60s, starting at a very young age, and um, ended up always trying to be whatever my notion of perfect was, which I know a lot of women fall into that trap.
Mm.
My particular pattern and my upbringing and everything else led all of that to manifest itself in eating disorders. So before anyone knew what eating disorders were,
Okay.
in 1971, I had full blown anorexia, and
Wow.
it was known by the medical establishment, but they didn't really have any way of treating it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a freshman in college. I was 17 years old, 1,000 miles from home. And I was told to go to the student health center, which I did. And they said, no, you're in too bad of shape. We can't help you. Here's a list of therapists.
Wow.
So, long story short, Freudian psychoanalysis, I wouldn't recommend it if you're starving yourself to death.
Mm.
But somehow I got through that 2 years and began to build a life. And on my own terms, moved 3,000 miles from home to San Francisco, started a career in radio. I had been a radio DJ on my college station.
Mm.
And one thing led to another. I had women's talk shows in the 70s on San Francisco radio. One was called Misdemeanors. Get it? Mis-
Mm-hmm. Love it.
the other was called Women Making Waves. And it was airwaves, but also women stirring up trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Focused on issues like everything from the Equal Rights Amendment. Don't even get me started on why that never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Rape crisis centers, shelters for battered women,
Wow.
so many things that were going on. And really, a lot of it was really happening here in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Right.
I had a radio career for 25 years. I married the love of my life. We just celebrated 44 years of marriage, had two
Congratulations.
sons. Um, and I was a person in constant motion. And when I say constant motion, I have an enormous amount of energy, but it was manic almost. And
Mm.
I was the news director of a major market radio station and raising two kids and helping to take care of my mom and taking my sister to chemotherapy appointments and volunteering at the school and the synagogue and all of it.
Right.
And I would go a million miles an hour. And then at the end of the day, I would take a hit of marijuana.
Mm.
And that would be my permission to stop
Right.
being productive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think on some level, I was also trying not to feel any pain.
Mm.
And if you keep going and keep producing and are a person in constant motion, you don't have time to reflect. You don't have time to just be and get
Mm.
comfortable with yourself.
Right.
Um, and I kind of went on like that for years. Ended up with a whole other career, worked at a nonprofit, ran programs for a long time, and ended up losing my mother and my sister in 2006, 5 months apart. And
Oh.
that absolutely felled me. Um, Loss is something that we will all experience. It is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely part of life. And
Right.
it is it can be devastating and it can absolutely bring you to your knees. I learned many things about grief, including that you can't rush it. And
Mm,
there's no template for how to move through it. Each case is different, but you absolutely need to give yourself the time. And I was still in that mode of go back to work, produce, produce, produce.
right.
And it wasn't until I was hit by a car
Mm,
as a pedestrian at the age of 58,
wow.
2012, that I was completely brought to my knees. I was not able to do anything for myself. I had 4 pelvic fractures and the whole right side of my body was crushed. I say this in a cavalier tone because
Mhm.
I don't have a single bit of residual damage. It was a complete recovery. I have no pain. I do yoga, I hike mountains, I do bar classes. Have you tried this?
Oh, yes, I have. And
Oh my
those are
god.
no joke.
No joke at all. I do that twice a week. Anyway, I'm fine now, but
Right.
suddenly I had to depend on others. I had to ask for
Mhm,
help. I had to do all the things I had never been able to do. I
mhm,
had to accept that other people did things differently than the way I would do them.
mhm.
So control, it wasn't like I chose to give up control. It was stripped from me.
Right.
And somehow I made this decision that I was going to rise to this occasion and grow through this
Mhm.
process. I did not invent the term post traumatic growth, but I use it all the time because we can choose to cash our chips in when something like that happens
Right.
and just fold,
Mhm,
wallow in self pity.
mhm,
There were many things I could have done and was tempted to do, and in moments did.
mhm.
But overall, it became, all right, I've never been able to sit and meditate because I have monkey mind and it would just go.
Right.
I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna do
Mm,
it and make myself do it. And I did.
mhm,
And um, ultimately, I got better. It took
mhm,
a full year and a half to get better from the accident.
mhm,
And at the 2-year mark, I went for a standard colonoscopy, as one is supposed to do.
mhm.
I had done it at age 50 and it was fine, nothing at all. And at age 60, with no symptoms at all, they said, you have colon cancer.
Oh my goodness.
So I got to practice what I had learned after the accident.
Yeah.
Because again, we can't control what happens to us, but we
Mhm,
can control how we respond. I was very fortunate. Surgery took care of it. I didn't need to have chemo. And then a series of other things happened over the next couple of years. My book follows me through this journey.
mhm,
And I learned so much about how to embrace life, how to count one's blessings and live in a state of gratitude that
mhm,
I decided I had to write the book that I knew I was always meant to write. I always
mm.
knew I would write a book. I was always a writer, but not this
Right.
kind of a writer. I was a
Right.
journalist.
Mhm,
Very, very different.
mhm,
And so I embarked on a journey. I took classes and I got a writing coach and I did it all and it took about 5 years and now
mhm.
I have by accident a memoir of letting go
I
and
love it.
very
Wow. So much, I mean, talk about overcoming adversity and just, really being in a space. Now, going back to when that accident happened, you had said that found a way that you were going to get better, you were going to do those things. What was it that drove you to just know that that was what you needed to do for yourself?
there were a few things.
Okay.
So first of all, I'm generally an optimist. I've always been an optimist, but I'm an optimist who battles anxiety and depression. So
Mm,
right, it's a lot of that, and
yeah.
again, a lot of energy and a lot of can do.
Hmm.
Um, At the moment that I was hit by the car, I was walking, it was broad daylight, I was in a crosswalk,
Mm,
cra lots of traffic. A
right.
car stopped for me, and then a truck came at 50 miles an hour, slammed into her, she hit me. So I didn't hear the screech of brakes, which is usually what you associate with a car accident.
Mhm.
All I heard was what sounded like an explosion, because if you don't hear that screech of brakes, the crash just, you can't really tell that it's metal hitting metal, but it just
Yeah.
sounded like an explosion.
Mhm.
And I found myself airborne. I was thrown up in the air and flipped onto the hood of this woman's car, and time sort of becomes stretched.
Yeah.
And my first reaction was, really? Because I had just been through not only the loss of my mother and sister, but my brother who died
Mm.
suddenly. And I had just really gotten myself back up to speed after all that. And I was saying really to the universe, to
Mhm.
God, if you will, to whatever,
Mhm.
like, really, now this, I haven't been through enough. And a
Right.
second later, I said to myself, and this all happened in a nanosecond, okay, let's do this.
Wow.
Okay, let's do this. Now, where did I get that from? I have no idea.
Mm.
I have to assume that some of it came from my ancestors. So
Mhm.
many of us in this country, in the United States, can trace our ancestry back to people who left where they were because they wanted to, and they had the guts to go somewhere where they knew no one, where they didn't speak the language, where they had limited skills to
Mhm.
try to earn a living. And my grandparents were part of that stream of immigrants that came from Europe at
Mhm.
the turn of the last century. And they
Mhm.
came with nothing and they figured it out. And so I
Mhm.
think it's in my DNA. But
Right.
I think that this is true for most of us, that there's some powerful pioneer or fighter or
Mhm.
inner, there's an inner strength that we can all draw upon from our maternal line. And
Yeah.
I think that's what I did. I
Mhm.
never met my maternal grandmother, but I've heard all about her. And I know that she bought real estate in Providence, Rhode Island, ended up losing
Mm.
all of it in the Depression. But had she not lost what she purchased, our family
Mhm.
would have been wealthy. I mean, just a crazy story. She knew what
Wow.
she was doing. And
Mhm.
so I think some of it was that.
Right.
Some of it was that I turned that into a mantra. I can do this. I can do this. And I didn't believe it at the beginning. And here's the thing, you just keep saying it. I can do
Mm.
this. I can
Mm.
do this. I can get through this. I can do this. And
Yeah.
eventually you start believing it.
Mm. It's that self-talk, right? Like it's just rewiring that story and that default brain that we, tend to go back on, that could go back to that negative. But when we're telling ourselves, you just keep going, something clicks there.
And you surround yourself with people
Yes.
who give you the right messages, and
Mhm.
you don't allow people in who make things worse. And in a
That's a
situation
great
like
point.
that, inevitably we're all going to have people in our lives who come and say the wrong thing, like the stupidest possible things.
Right.
It's like when you have a loss and someone says, well, they're in a better place. Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Are they where is that place? And
Right.
so
Exactly.
whatever, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I've joked with friends that we should write a book about the stupidest things people say.
Right.
People would feel the need to tell me about all the car accidents they had been in. Like,
Mm.
leave my bedroom right now. I can't hear this.
Right.
It's not helpful.
No.
So, so yeah, it's and giving in to certain things, but not other things, right? It's,
Mhm.
I mean, I cried plenty, no
Yeah.
question. I cried, I screamed, I did all of it. And
Right.
I mean, the pain was excruciating, and the trauma response.
Mm.
I kept reliving the accident. I never lost consciousness, which is, I guess, both a blessing and a curse.
Right.
So I remember every minute of it. I remember exactly what happened. I remember what the policeman said. The guy who caused the accident jumped out of his truck, started talking to me, and then jumped back in his truck and left.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was in fact hit and run. And I remembered all of it. And that haunted me. But at the
Right.
same time, I was so fortunate, Noelle, because I had the resources to
Yeah.
get the help I needed, both physically and emotionally and psychologically. I went into a very specific kind of therapy
Mm,
for trauma. And if folks listening have the resources for that, it's invaluable. It
yeah.
was, it helped enormously. Um,
I
yeah.
bet. I
So,
mean, that definitely, I mean, tapping into those resources, I just feel like are, it's just so important. Trauma is a very real thing, and it can, I know just by talking to women, going through my own story with trauma, it manifests itself so differently for everybody, and it can manifest itself for a very long time. Like,
and
the
in
quickest,
crazy ways,
right?
I'll give you a short example. The first time I went, it was called somatic therapy,
Mm,
which I definitely recommend, but there are other types of therapy that are equally good post trauma.
okay.
First time, I'm sitting in this person's office and I'm broken. It took a half an hour for me to get up the stairs with my walker and all that. And
Right.
I'm a mess and I'm sitting on this couch and she is going to put me into a state where I'm going to imagine myself with a bubble of protection around me and she's going to have me walk off the curb in my mind as the accident is happening. And she asks me to look to the right and I can't move my head.
Oh
Now,
my
my
gosh.
neck was not injured. The trauma had already lodged. The car that came and caused the accident came from the right. I was able to move my head to the left, but I could not move my head to the right. And
Wow.
my eyes popped open, and I said to her, "What's happening?" And she smiled in a very calm voice. She said, "You must have needed proof that trauma can lodge in the body. So your body just gave you the proof. And by the
Wow.
time you leave my office today, 45 minutes from now, you will have full range of motion in your neck." And I did,
Amazing. Wow.
because there was nothing wrong with my neck.
Right.
But I had already, to protect myself from seeing
Mm,
this impending, whatever, trauma
yeah.
crisis,
Yeah.
I already had like frozen my neck.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah, and you hear of that happening. I mean, that is like you said. I mean, it just manifests itself in these crazy ways. And so just the importance of not just living with it. And I'm curious with even, obviously you had gone to therapy, you had really, made a decision that this was something that you were going to work through and get through. Going into your book, I know you said that you always knew you had a book in you, but did writing your memoir help you process these experiences or have an impact on your healing
100%.
journey? Mm,
Absolutely. Writing it, rewriting it, and talking about it now,
yeah.
I'm constantly reinforcing to myself because I I'm still talking about it and I hope to for a
Mhm.
long time. I'm constantly reminding myself to, for instance, this is an interesting one. My mom used to say, "This too shall pass," and I would roll my eyes because I thought it was such a corny, old
Right.
thing. It was so helpful
Yeah.
because however deep the despair that you're in any given moment, however severe the physical pain is, the trauma, the angst, whatever it is, it's a moment and the
Mhm.
moment is going to pass. And the
Yeah.
next moment may be worse or it may be better, but it's going to be different.
Right.
So, this too shall pass was another one of the many things that I told myself again
Mhm.
and again and again. It's ancient wisdom. It's found in the Talmud, which is an ancient text. I didn't know that until
Mm.
I did a little research later,
Yeah.
but it's hugely helpful because this grief, this whatever, terror, trauma, fear, anger, all of it is going to morph and change into something else.
Mhm.
And so knowing that makes it less daunting.
Mm.
Doesn't make the pain of the moment any better, but
Right.
it's, it's not forever because you feel like it's going to be forever. I'm sure you've
Right.
been there, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right. We all
I
have.
think that resonates. Yes, definitely resonates with people for sure.
Right.
Yeah, and just
You
knowing
tell
that.
yourself this is going to pass.
Yeah,
And it's still horrible.
right.
And I'm not saying any of these things that I'm describing take the pain away.
Of
There are
course.
no shortcuts. You have to
Mhm.
go through the pain. You
Right.
just do.
Yeah.
And we are built to do that. We
Right.
are.
Yeah.
Um, we have a lot inside ourselves that we can
Mhm.
draw upon. And and again, surround yourself with the right people. Read the right things. Watch the right things on television. I mean, I couldn't do anything, couldn't even really hold a book at the beginning.
Mm.
So I would watch things on TV, and I couldn't believe how many car accidents happen on shows. You know
Right.
how like what right? Like it's when you're pregnant, all you see are strollers.
Right.
Everything seems to have
It's that energy of attraction. Like it's almost like your mind now starts to see all of that all of the time in front of you. Yes. Yeah.
exactly. So thankfully that year our baseball team was in the World Series. So I could watch
Mm.
every game and like mindlessly stare, there's the pitch, and they run.
Right, right.
It was harmless. So
Yeah, no, I think that's a, those are those strategies, right? Those are those things that we can tap into to get us through that season because I do believe I am right there with you that if we can look at this as a season and this too shall pass, and I love that you said you used to roll your eyes because my daughter still to this day says, Mom, there were so many of these little things you used to say to me, that just used to irritate me and bug me. And now, as I see you, not just as my mom, but as like a human, a fellow woman, she goes, I'm so grateful that you planted those seeds in me because it has helped me in my adult life to be able to tap into that and go, oh, that's what she was talking about. That's what she meant by that.
so I turned 70 in February, and
Yeah.
I have grown kids. They're my two sons are 38 and 41, and they both have wonderful wives whom I adore.
Oh,
And they made a list of 70 things I've taught them about life, about how to
I
live a
love
life.
that.
And I have this enormous card. If I picked it up, you wouldn't see me because it's like this big.
Oh,
And
I love that.
all the 70 things. And, some of them are silly and many of them are quite profound. And I don't know that I consciously taught them those things, but I guess I showed them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Well, and that brings me to because gosh, I can't wait to dive into this book. I was so intrigued by it and by the time we were getting our episode together, I didn't have time to grab that, but I have been listening to your podcast and the way that you have styled these and these, you call them micro essays, it's such a unique format, but it's so first of all, I love it's so unique because you keep them short. You are so relevant. I feel like I was telling you before the show, my husband and I over lunch were listening to them and listening to your last episode, and it just prompted this whole conversation, but it kept us both so engaged. What inspired you to start this podcast and what is it offering, for you, for the world? What are, what are your thoughts around that?
So this is my third podcast that I've done, but also
Okay.
I'm an old radio gal, and that's what
Yes, I did know
happens.
that. I love
Right,
that.
so after years of doing radio shows, and my husband is a recording engineer, and he has a full
Okay.
studio here in our house, so um, it's very easy, relatively easy for me to do podcasts. The last one I did, and there are still 60 episodes up, you can hear. It's called All the F Words, and here's what it is: it's two women 30 years apart who give an F about everything, talk about things that start with the letter F. And so we go for friendship and family and feng shui and feminine hygiene and family and family fights and you name it.
I
60
love it.
different episodes. So
Wow.
those are about 45 minutes long.
Okay.
I wanted to build an audience so that when my book came out, I would have an audience of people who would be interested in reading my full-length memoir. And so I
Right.
decided to do a series of memoir-style essays because short form is really what I always did in radio. I always
Okay.
did features, and it's kind of the way my mind works, and my attention span is not great. The fact that I finished a book is just a shock, and can't believe I did it, but I did it. And I will never do it again. Just like that's one and done.
Right.
But
Got
the
it out.
essays, yeah, but the essays are a pure joy for me to do. And so it's kind of my legacy. I don't know. I mean, I don't have a really big listenership. I don't know how to get that really without spending a whole lot of money, but I do get great feedback, and that is wonderful. And they're going to live online for not necessarily forever, but for a long
Yeah.
time. So they're out there. They'll outlive me. And you know, I'm glad that my sons don't listen to them because I'm sure there's plenty that's embarrassing in there that I divulge because I have no filter, no boundaries. I just tell it all. And
Mhm.
many of them are funny. Many of them are nostalgic. Like I did one on school lunch. Do you remember school
Oh,
lunch?
I gotta go back and listen to that since I
Oh,
was a
school
former
lunch is a
teacher.
fun one. There are so many, and lots just about my radio career and
Yeah.
famous people that I got to interview over the years. The one about Jane Fonda is the first one.
Okay.
Um, I spent an hour and a half in a hotel suite with Jane Fonda.
Oh, wow.
That was
There
pretty
was
amazing.
yeah, I was gonna say probably a lot to share on that. Wow, I love that, and it really just, it is. It's just so inspiring to hear you. And I know we talked about this at the beginning, that me being 50 and you're 70. And I love engaging in this conversation because we're two women that I just interviewed a 29-year-old, a mom and a wife, and who's, had some pivots of her own. And I love that all of this in conversation and what it is that we're sharing is it's inspiring to each generation, and I love that you stay relevant in a world that is always changing. It's evolving all the time. I mean, it's a crazy world right now, it feels like.
Faster
And
and faster and faster. And now I'm a
right.
grandma. I have 3
Oh,
grandchildren. So,
congratulations. Yeah,
yes.
so then that's a whole new chapter in your life that you get to experience. And so I guess that would lead me to, as we're kind of rounding this out, I guess that would lead me to, obviously, I'm sure your definition of success has changed throughout the years. But what does living your best or favorite life mean to you now compared to what that was before?
Great question. And I often have this conversation with other authors, like, what is success? Like, how do you know if your book was successful? Well, did
Right,
it go into a second printing? No. Um, are you making money? Like, are you making the money back that you
right.
spent? No. But people enjoy it, and people are finding it helpful. I know of a number of people who bought it as gifts for people facing surgery or who had been in accidents.
Mhm.
I'm now volunteering with an organization called Families for Safe Streets, and
Mm,
next week I've been matched with someone who's been in an accident. She doesn't have severe physical injuries, but she's totally traumatized and is terrified to get back in a car.
wow.
And I've been trained to be a peer counselor, and I'm going to help her
Mm,
through this. And to be able to use my life's experiences to benefit others
mhm.
is success to me.
Absolutely.
To be able to create a life where there's a balance of self-care and giving back, um, with a tremendous amount of laughter and fun. I'm going to a baseball game tonight. I'm very excited.
Love it.
I'm a vegetarian, and I'm going to have a Chicago style hot dog because here's the thing. Mostly I'm a vegetarian because it's
Yeah,
going to be healthy for my body, but
right.
I miss hot dogs. And if I'm going to a baseball game, I'm going to have a hot dog
Love that.
with all the stuff on it,
Yep.
all of it, the peppers, the pickles, all of it. So,
Right.
I'm goofy and fun, and I love to dance, and I love to hike, and I love nature. I've been taking pictures this week of tree trunks because they're all so different. And just the mere fact of noticing the tree trunks
Mhm.
has
Mm,
enriched my life this week. And I never gave myself time to do anything like that because my to-do list was 6 miles long.
right. So now you have this space to be able to bring these things, and it's the intention of that has changed my life as well, because I was very much, I disguised everything in busyness and emotions, just everything in my life was disguised in busyness. And now that I'm not in that space anymore, I hear you so loud and clear about how we start to notice things differently and we experience things differently. And I love that you're going to go have a hot dog. And these are those moments. These are those, like, what I like to call mini experiences that we get to create for ourselves, and how fun that makes life. In So when we're going through the hard and we're going through those challenging times, we get to look at these moments and go, this was worth it. It was worth it to be here today.
Absolutely. Go for
I
the
love
joy.
it.
Just
I
really, and bring
Yeah.
joy to others.
Yes.
I try to do that all
You
the time.
do. You do
I
such a great job of
Oh,
that.
thank you. I wanna mention the book is available in 3
Please.
different ways.
Yes.
You can get it as a paperback if you're someone who needs to hold a book.
Okay.
Um, if you're like me and you read on a Kindle because you like to adjust the font and fall asleep and not lose your place, it's available as an ebook, and it's also an audiobook because I'm a radio person, and um, my husband produced it and I voice it, and it's 5.5 hours. And take me for a walk. I've gone on many, many walks in people's
Yeah.
ears. So get the book on Audible or wherever you get your audiobooks, but it's widely available everywhere. It's called By Accident, A Memoir of Letting Go.
Absolutely. I want to get this book into the hands of many, because like I said, if your podcasts are just those snippets, and you're just so, typically I kind of go in between. I haven't hit the Kindle yet. I just love the feel of a book and the touch of the book, but it's getting a little bit harder these days with the font, I will say, but I love listening to audios when I'm on a drive or taking a walk. I love that idea. So I certainly want to make sure that I'm grabbing that book, and I would love for others to do the same. And Joanne, you have been an absolute joy and such an inspiration. I feel like I could sit here all day. We might even need to go into a part two and dig deeper into some of the different things that we were talking about today, because I think that you are just such a light. You just bring this energy that is such a light. And I feel like you have this, like, natural ability to turn lemons into lemonade.
Well,
But
it's an acquired thing. So
yeah, and it
you
takes
too
practice.
can have this.
Right. Well, I cannot wait. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you. Your book, By Accident, is definitely going to be, like I said, a must read. And catch the podcast, ladies. If I can say anything, catch the podcast. I'm now intrigued with the other one. Can you remind us the name of the other one that you have as well? With the
All the
60
F words.
episodes? Oh, yes, all the F words. I love it. We will make sure that we're going to get this all in the show notes. So we will make sure to do that. And then I know your current podcast is called In This Story, um,
It's In This Story with Joanne
with
Green. I
Joanne Green. Perfect.
just,
All right.
sometimes you have to put in every word in order
I
to get it
know.
to pop up, but it's on all the podcast platforms. So,
Oh, I love it. Yes. So we will make sure to be doing that. Again, thank you so much for your time. So excited to dive
oh,
in.
one more thing. If any
Yes,
of your
please.
listeners want to chat, they can
Yes.
reach me through my website, which is Joanne, Joanne dash hyphen, whatever you call that, Greene, Greene.com. So, and you, my dear Noelle, if you read my book or listen to it, I want to hear what you think. So
Oh, I
stay
absolutely
in
will
touch.
do that. I will definitely be in touch, and I love writing reviews, so I would love to do that as well. And for our audience, please do that too, and make sure if you read this book, let Joanne know what your thoughts are and connect with her. This is what community is all about. So just want to encourage you for that. And then just want to remind you to keep rising, keep shining, and know that the best is yet to come. Bye, friends. Thanks for joining me here today. Your presence means the world to me. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider leaving a rating and review, and don't forget to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. Head to the show notes and let's connect. Rise to Shine Co. is ready to support you in coaching, collaboration, life tips, or even a coffee chat. Until next time, keep shining, my friends.